Hello and welcome to the Ottawa Business Journal's YouTube live broadcast of Managing Cash Flow and Working Capital in a Crisis. I'm Michael Curran from the Ottawa Business Journal. Thank you so much for being here today. This live event continues a series of broadcasts that OBJ is doing. We want to provide you, the business owners and leaders, with vital information that helps you survive and thrive in this pandemic. Today, we turn our attention that was foremost in the minds of business owners in the early days of the pandemic. But truth be told, it was an issue then, it's an issue now, and really, it'll be an issue forever. I'm talking about cash flow, of course. We're doing today's show a little bit differently. It's a bit of a show and tell. Our first guest is from a global brand. You'll recognize this brand right away that specializes in financial services for business owners. And our second guest is an award-winning local entrepreneur that will share his growth story with you and also how he manages his cash. The end goal, though, is to provide you with real-world practical tips to improve your business. Before I introduce our guest, a few housekeeping notes. We want to make this an interactive session, and that means we want your questions. And you can use the YouTube chat function to the right of your screen to ask those questions. My colleague from Ottawa Business Journal, Peter Kavesi, will be watching the chat throughout the broadcast, and he will pose them to today's guests in about 25 minutes or so. So we'll end off with our interactive session. We'll also be checking with Peter Kavesi on a series of poll questions we asked today's registered guests in advance. So let's start by introducing our guests. I'll do that one at a time. First off, I'd like to welcome Vincent Hubert from American Express. Hello, Vincent.
Hi, Michael. How are you?
Good. Happy Monday to you.
Likewise.
It's a bright, sunny day in Ottawa, and you're joining us from Montreal. Vincent, as we kick things off, tell me a little bit about yourself and the job you do at American Express.
Yes, no, thanks, Michael. Really excited to be doing this with the Ottawa Business Journal. So as you mentioned, I'm based currently in Montreal. I oversee the team that manages the eastern portion of the country. So I'm in charge of Eastern Canada for American Express on the corporate side. But that being said, I want to acknowledge my local roots. So I was actually born and raised in Gatineau, and I went to Ottawa U, and also. So obviously still a lot of friends and family based in the region, but also one of the main reasons why I'm excited to be doing this with you guys is because Ottawa is part of the 5 priority markets for Canada at American Express. So again, more to come on this in the conversation, but again, thanks for having us.
We always like to hear that Ottawa is a priority to big companies, so that's good for all of us. We haven't been forgotten. So, Vincent, just before we get into the meat and potatoes of the show, I also wanted to just get your sense of this. So, when I think about Amex, I think it might be true for some other people. We think of kind of a blue credit card, and I think that's just kind of an old-fashioned way of thinking about Amex. Bring us up to speed. What is the modern version of American Express?
Yeah, no, and definitely, Michael, you're not the only one. Again, when we were attending some live events before the pandemic, a lot of people came to me about, hey, what a surprise, whereas American Express is present here, still talking to us, sometimes also, believe it or not, about Traveler's Check. So I think it's good to have a global brand. People, right, they recognize us. That being said, to your point, Michael, so American Express in Canada, we're a second-tier bank. We offer unsecured credit. We are off-balance sheet. We do not show up on financial statements as a line of credit, rather as a supplier, which has a positive impact on the liquidity ratio. And typically, we are what we call a closed loop. So we have both an impact on the receivables and the payables. And again, we'll touch more on this over the conversation. But no, I think it's important for people to understand that American Express is a bank, and we're complementary in the market to traditional banks.
Yeah. Well, that's a great introduction, and thanks to bringing us up to speed. Now let's meet our second guest. Please welcome Saleh Taebi from CanadaWheels. Hey, Saleh.
Hi, Michael. Hi, Vincent, and hi to everybody attending the webinar. I'm very excited to be here.
It's awesome to have you, Saleh. I remember the good old days when we used to bump into each other at networking events at Technology Sector, Invest Ottawa, and so on and so forth. Well, we have you virtually today, though.
It's always a pleasure bumping into you, Michael.
So we know each other well, Saleh, but I want to make sure that everyone tuning in today understands you. So introduce yourself, like who you are, your role, and equally important, introduce us to your exciting growth company, CanadaWheels.
Sure. So I'm Saleh Taebi, founder and CEO of CanadaWheels. We are Canada's fastest growing online retailer of wheels, tires, and automotive parts. We were founded in 2012 and bootstrapped since inception. We're an Ottawa company. We're over 20 employees. 15 of our employees are in Ottawa, something we're really proud of. And we have the vision to be the Amazon of car parts in Canada and beyond. This year, we're preparing a very exciting expansion into the USA market under the brand usawheels.com.
That's really cool. That's really cool. You remind me of another big e-commerce supplier in Ottawa, just down the street from you, Shopify. So hopefully you have that type of success. So listen, guys, I'm going to put you on hold and let people know what's coming up in the next 25 minutes or so. Our first topic will be growing in a crisis, the CanadaWheels story. And we'll get Saleh to share some details on that. Topic number 2 is about managing cash flow, where to start and why it's important. And topic number 3 are more financial tools and tips. And we'll end up with live questions from our live audience. Peter Kavesi will be posing those. So let's get down to all the important learning that we need to do today. Topic number 1, as I indicated, was growing in a crisis, the CanadaWheels story. And Saleh, we're going to use you as a little bit of a case study of sorts. Like lots of companies, Saleh, I imagine CanadaWheels had all sorts of challenges last March and April, whether they be HR challenges, operational challenges. So Saleh, give us a sense of how CanadaWheels coped with COVID-19.
Sure. Yes, Michael. So when the pandemic happened, essentially the people were staying home. It changed the way people were working, they were playing, and how they were interacting with the society and shopping. They were more adopting technology. We were being that technology online retailer, we were very well positioned in picking up, the users. We experienced years of growth all happening within the same year to us. This was really good for us, for the business, but at the same time, it created a lot of challenges. Our employees, I think it was end of February where we followed almost everybody else, and we told our employees to work from home. Although we had all the tools and procedures in place, growing the company in terms of headcount was extremely difficult. We had our customers that paying big ticket items. It was an issue for them, so we had to essentially introduce 6 payment-free options in the checkout, where people can pay their transactions in smaller portions, interest-free. Returns was an issue. In order to prevent this spread for a while, we put a stop on returns, but we were very open in terms of communication with our clients. When it came to our vendors, talking to them was really important. But so all the marketing, advertising, being in the uncertain times, not knowing how we're going to grow, there was a lot of decisions we had to make on the spot. But at the end, it worked out in a really good way for us. We grew a lot.
That's awesome. And we're seeing some examples of your website, by the way. You had some new features. In fact, tell me a little bit about this. You had a visualization feature that you added, and some other things happened to the website. Give us a quick sense of that, Saleh.
Sure. So I think around 8 years ago, we were the first company in the automotive part space that had visualizer. We introduced our visualizer where you could visualize the rims on your car before you buy it. We were, again, the first people also that offered free shipping, because rims and tires are very heavy product. We had that all year round. If you buy 4 rims, 4 tires, you get free shipping.
Wow.
When the pandemic happened, we were worried that people are going to be driving less. So our revenue on the rim and tire side, it's going to fall down. So we had to pivot quickly. And what happened was we accelerated our plan in growing into relevant categories. So we added hundreds of brands of auto parts to our website. And what happened was the rim and tire grew by hundreds of percents, and our parts picked up slowly. So it's slowly picking up. But if anything, it just added new streams of revenue for us.
That's pretty cool. I want to bring Vincent back in the conversation first, but just give us a quick sense. I think you've touched on already the fact that you're doing a big U.S. expansion. Give us a short sense of what's happening in the U.S. for CanadaWheels.
Yeah, so we're currently planning and actually implementing everything that needs to be in place for us to launch successfully in the U.S. We have an extremely strong name, usawheels.com. We have perfected the technology in Canada for the past 9 years. So essentially, the technology is going to be a duplicate of the technology we have here. And we're already talking, and from a business development standpoint, we've been talking to vendors. We've been partnering with vendors like American Express, which have presence both in Canada and US and globally. So we're doing everything that it requires, but we just want to make sure that when we do launch, it's a successful launch.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Vincent, as I said, I want to bring you back into the conversation. So I think one of the cool things about your job, Vincent, is you get to meet a lot of entrepreneurs and get to know them a little bit personally, a little bit professionally. What is it you like about the CanadaWheels story?
Well, I mean, thanks for the question. I think that the first minute I met Saleh, you can see that he's a true entrepreneur in a sense that he's a curious person, right? And I think to me, because I mean, again, at American Express, that's what we do, right? We're here to support companies like CanadaWheels to expand and to achieve their goals. And when you see someone like Saleh, that's always ahead of the curve and thinking outside the box and mainly open to new suggestions. I mean, you're sensing that obviously the guy's going to go in the right direction, and I think he already touched in the first few minutes about so many crucial points. I even note open communication with his client, speaking with partners ahead of time. So Saleh is not the type of is actually the type of person that will kind of search before, be curious again, as I mentioned, and then take into actions once he has all of the data. In order to make sure that it's going to be a successful journey, right?
He touched on American Express just briefly, and again, just to be clear, Saleh's a customer of yours. So, what is it that American Express thinks they can do for startups or companies like Saleh's?
Well, I mean, so there's two things, right? So one, it's I mean, there's no such thing as a one size fits all, right? So those are all tailor-made programs, and that's why I'm super happy. Also, I need to acknowledge Bhavna Patel works with me. She's currently based in Ottawa. We're also adding more headcounts from our merchant division services as well. So Ottawa, again, as I mentioned, being one of the main priority markets for the country for Amex, but for entrepreneurs like Saleh, I mean, take perhaps a step back, right? Statistics Canada showed some results a few months ago. Last year, 17.6% of the Canadian business were doing online business. Now this year, they're up to 21.6%. Saleh, obviously, in that case, did not wait for the pandemic to happen until he started to do some online businesses. He started that before. So I think we're there to kind of support growth for those businesses, to listen to them and again adapt to adapt their solutions based on their needs. Saleh, extremely happy to see the expansion in the US coming up. I mean, over the years, we've worked with partners like EY, and we've conducted a bunch of surveys, and it's not gonna, like, nobody's gonna fall off of their chair to know that the US has been coming up as the number one area of opportunity for Canadian businesses. But there's a lot of fear out there, mainly based out of three factors. One, the currency fluctuation. to the economic change in general. So it could be related to political change or things like that. And three, the fees that you need to go over there. So to Saleh's point, partnering with some companies that have a footstep over there is obviously a good way to start with.
Cool. And I can see why, Vincent, that American Express is relevant to these types of companies. Listen, guys, I'm going to bring my colleague in. I referred to him before, Peter Kavesi from Ottawa Business Journal. Welcome to Peter. So, Peter, you have, as we do often, conducted an advanced poll of today's registrants. Tell us what the question was and give us a sense of what those results were. Oh, Peter, you're muted right now. There you go.
Apologies. Our first question.
We had to have that.
Yes, we did.
It's 2020, 2021 thing.
Our first poll question is going to provide a bit of a backdrop to our discussion about cash flow that we're going to turn to in just a second. So we asked registrants about how their cash flow position has changed over the past 6 months. And encouragingly, more than half has said that their cash flow position has improved. Vincent, I'm curious, how does that compare to what you're seeing out there?
It's definitely in line. I think what happened is that there's in life, I like what to call a compelling event, right? The pandemic for a lot of companies were that compelling event. Fortunately and unfortunately, right? Meaning there's a lot of companies that when this happened, they turned to their financial institution to say, hey, can you help me out? And obviously the Canadian government and the different provinces put a lot of programs in place to kind of support the economy. So we're seeing a way better improvement for this. And I mean, I'm going to touch point later on again, but to me, the first point was be curious and don't wait for the next financial crisis to kind of reach out and to speak with your partners, right? So same as, let's use the Saleh example here, speak with them before on a constant basis, touch base with them, because then when a pandemic actually happens like this, whatever, right? It might not be the next pandemic, but the next something else that will come up, at least you'll be better prepared and you'll be well supported by your partners in there, because again, we're all in this together.
Those are great tips. I'm looking forward to hearing more of that discussion in just a moment. Before I turn it back over to Mike, just a reminder to our audience that we do have the chat window just below the video on the right. So please share what's on your mind, share your comments about how your business is navigating the pandemic, and definitely do share any questions that you have for Vincent and Saleh. We'll be posing them to our guests at the end of the broadcast. Mike, back to you.
Yeah. Wow. You guys set this up perfectly, because we've been kind of talking around the issue of managing cash flow. Now we're going to address it head on. And Vincent, I like the point you just made there. So, the poll result was people are saying, well, my cash flow is not that bad, but cash flow is something that needs constant attention. And it's something you need to address before you have an issue, right? So let's start talking about this, Vincent. In fact, we'll start with a why. So why is this just to make sure people understand why it's so important, why is this such an important issue, do you think?
Yeah. No, I agree. Simon Sinek, that I'm a big fan of, always says that, right? Start with why, and then the rest will kind of come. So why is a cash flow analysis important? I mean, whether you're a startup business or in a growth stage, a cash flow analysis can tell you a lot about your company's financial health. It's important to realize, by the way, that cash flow and profitability are not the same thing. You can have a very profitable business in the long term, but negative cash flow at a specific moment in time. So obviously, like a simple cash flow analysis explores the movement of money in and out of your business during a specific time period. So you can discover, or cover probably I should say, do you have a need to increase your access to liquid assets, or spend more capital investments, or even reduce spend over time? I mean, one example that I saw over the pandemic is that if you've probably heard cash is king quite frequently. An opportunity that we saw over the pandemic was that one of our clients, they saw that one of their main competitor in the US were kind of struggling. They had a lot of cash on hand, so they took that opportunity to kind of grab the business away from that competitor, right? So I think the compelling event, which was the pandemic, again, what's going to be the next one, we don't know, but there is going to be a next one, are you going to be prepared for that piece? And I would say one tip that I'd like to give out, when you're starting your business, probably you want to do a cash analysis on a monthly basis. And then as you're growing, maybe, I mean, awesome if you can keep it on a monthly basis, but on a quarterly basis is what American Express is obviously recommending. But at least it will give you a capture in time of where you are sitting, and are you going to be ready for when the next opportunity resides, right? Because I guess I'd like to leave this kind of topic with a question. How are you going to leave the current situation, the current pandemic, as it's coming to an end, right? It's kind of a positive thing. Are you going to leave this pandemic or this situation that we faced into in a better position or in a worse position than when you came in, right? And the companies that are going to be successful are the ones that are starting right now to think about, okay, what's the next steps, right? Where am I going next?
Yeah, I love that point, and it is such an important thing to think about, that profitability and cash flow, aren't always connected. If you're a retailer leading up to a really busy time, you might be profitable, but you might need to purchase a massive amount of inventory that puts a short-term cash crunch on you, even though you're going to make a lot of money when you sell that inventory.
I'd like, Michael, if you don't mind, I'd like to capture. There's one thing,
Yeah.
and Saleh, that's a concept that you've heard as well, but before the pandemic, we were hearing a lot of just in time, right? Meaning you receive the inventory just in time, and then it leaves right almost immediately your storage. Now I'm hearing a lot of clients speak about just in case, right? And perhaps that's a good segue for the next case. I wonder if that's something that you're speaking about. But okay, how do I get my pieces? How do I get my everything kind of needs to fulfill my inventory? A lot of my clients are saying, hey, I'm gonna purchase more inventory just in case something happens, because I don't want to be left alone with no stock, right? I mean, we're seeing it with the wood industry right now.
Yeah.
I was speaking with another client who's doing bicycles, electrical bicycles. He can't get a repair pieces until 12 months. So he's already pre-planning a season for 2023 right now. So I don't know, Saleh, how this impacts you, but if you heard that new expression more in the market right now.
Yeah, tell us about that, Saleh. Tell us about how you needed to keep an eye on cash flow even though you were growing in the pandemic. How did you do that? Why was that important?
Yeah, sure. So very, very great points you guys brought up. Being a bootstrap company, we were always very sensitive and on top of our cash flow. We always made sure we make more money than we spend. We always compared the months of the year to the identical months of last year. And not only that, we thought about the month of the same year for 1 year ahead of time and where we want to be. And whenever we were short, say if we didn't see the growth was there, we would make sure that we would put promotions or do things differently, because to expect a different result. But cash flow, is extremely important, because it's the profitability, it's the health of your business, and at the same time, it's very linked to growth. So the more you grow, the more you're focused on your growth, the more you're gonna position yourself in a better cash flow position. And again, talking to your vendors, you guys brought up some very good examples. If you have to do a purchase in bulk for 1 month, all the vendors these days, as long as you talk to them, they're open to their terms. So spread that out, instead of paying them all in one, so it affects you less. But overall, I have seen so many companies around me that they do hiring more than their company requires, and that hurts their cash flow, or they advertise without having sales because their intention is to bring sales, and that hurts their cash flow. So the best way to put this is you got to be really good with your money. Spending money is easy. Making money and making sure you have more cash than you spend, that's an art.
Yeah, I love that. Listen, guys, we're going to bring Peter Kavesi back in. Peter asked 2 advanced questions. And Peter, tell us about the second poll and what you found.
Well, for our second poll question, we wanted to ask our audience about some of their thoughts and their sentiments about obtaining sources of financing. So we asked our registrants what sources of capital are they most likely to look to access in the coming years, and in this case, the most popular response was bank loans. Vincent, what's your reaction to that? Does that come as any surprise to you?
No, Peter, it doesn't, right? I feel it's the correlation between that question and the first question. It's highly linked, right? What we were speaking about, people when that event came up, they kind of went back to their bank or their banking syndicate to kind of see at their options, and that's what poll that's what that poll is telling us. I mean,
Right.
I just want to add, bank loans is great, but there's tons of resources, government fundings, wage subsidies, amazing, funding programs for technology companies such as IRAP, OCI. There's a lot of them, and make sure you take advantage of all those programs as well. The help is out there. If you guys are not seeing it, I feel there might be something wrong.
That's really good advice, and thank you, Rent, for bringing that up. That's a takeaway I've always heard as well in my career. Just that there is a really diverse landscape of opportunities out there. As you alluded to, the challenges. Make sure you know where to look and get the advice on helping you access those funding. Just before we enter our final topic, I did just want to remind our audience that we do have the chat window live just below the video. So please, we're already getting some great questions. Share your thoughts. I'll be posing them to our guests at the end of the broadcast. Mike, back to you.
All right, we're already into topic number 3, and this is where we will provide today's audience with more tips on improving your cash flow and how to manage. And Vincent, we're going to start with you. Saleh was just talking about a minute ago about dealing with suppliers. And one thing people might not know is that you can use Amex as effectively a source of unsecured credit. Explain that for us today, Vincent.
Yeah, no, I think, and again, and then we'll go back to kind of the topic of the tips here, because Saleh just brought up some very valid points here. But yes, American Express, and again, like, this is not an Amex pitch, right? We're just talking about what's out there for entrepreneurs in the Ottawa region. But we have the capacity, and this is where we've kind of worked with Saleh, both on a sales side, but also on a payable side, is to say, okay, what is your main goal here, and what are you trying to achieve? And a lot of companies, right? So, I mean, are they trying to achieve kind of greater payment terms? Are they trying to take advantage of early payment discount? But then there's seasonality, for instance, like in the tire business, where you need to purchase a lot of inventory two times in a year. So it's kind of, again, going to the needs analysis of the client and understanding what's in there for them. There's also where we've worked with Saleh is, okay, how do we kind of work with them from a merchant perspective, right? How Saleh is in growth mode, they can take it. How do we increase their sales through our merchant network, leveraging our marketing tools in order to kind of support that growth? Yeah, no, I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was looking for. And I guess one of the other ideas I think we could touch on is, and we've touched on it before, Saleh actually mentioned it, is making sure you've got an open line of communication to your suppliers. So expand on that a little bit for us, Vincent.
Yes, well, I mean, again, just recently, so Saleh is doing it again perfectly. Just recently, I was speaking with a company in New Brunswick, and again, it's conducting their own needs analysis by speaking with their partners, their vendors, to see, okay, they don't want to break the chain, right, of in order to kind of fill up the inventory and get the stock that they need in time. And they kind of realized that one of their main vendor, which was essential for the continuity of their business, they were having cash flow issues. And so they kind of spoke with them, and they were like, hey, listen, we're going to pay you up front, because they had the necessary cash flow. So again, cash is king. Being able to kind of leverage this in crucial situation was essential for them. And that what granted us is that granted them the security to have their own stock and not break the inventory chain along the way. So that was essential. But again, at to Saleh's point earlier, if they never had that conversation with that vendor, they would have never known them. So that's one piece that people are looking forward to.
And Saleh, when you're thinking about this issue, so other tips, what other tips might you have to share with people watching today?
In general, be agile in your thinking. Pivoting a business, you as a person have to pivot the way you think, and part of that pivoting is being open in talking and listening to the value proposition that big brands such as American Express have to offer you. We didn't have a banking need when we spoke with American Express, but just listening to their story and what they had to offer, we thought it was amazing, and it's a win-win for everybody. And since we have been amazing partners with each other, so just be open and on trying new things, talking to new people, and if you can't think about it and if you cannot vision it, it's not going to be reality. So if there's a perfect situation on how you want to deal with a vendor or how you want to pay a vendor, bring that up in a conversation, and always try to create that win-win, not only for yourself, but for everybody.
Cool.
Go
ahead, Vince, please.
Sorry, Michael. No, if I may, just to Saleh's point, just and hats off, apologize to OBJ for doing those type of events, because when we're talking about being curious, it's also attending those type of webinars that you're going to listen to successful people like such as Saleh discuss about outside the box ideas that may come up, right? So hats off, I guess, to everybody who's listening right now. Hopefully you're getting something new out of this webinar, but I think there exists some webinars like this. OBJ is doing a lot of good webinars like this one, and I believe that's the key here, to listen to new ideas.
Absolutely. Listen, let's bring Peter back, because we have a bunch of questions in the Q&A. And Peter, why don't you start shooting them over to our guests?
Absolutely. So I want to throw the first question over to Vincent. Vincent, one of the takeaways I've heard from our discussions is that one shouldn't be waiting until times are tough before you start the discussion with financial partners. Mm-hmm. So tell me, at a time when as we saw in the poll results, there is a bit of positive sentiment in a lot of sectors of the economy. What sort of discussions should business owners be having with their banks, with other financial partners, when things are going okay?
No, good question, and I think Saleh would have a good couple ideas on that as well. But I think one, speak about your goals, right? Speak about what's your next steps. Where are you seeing yourselves in the next 5 years, and what are the goals step by step that you're trying to achieve from there. Don't be shy also to talk about your challenges. I know that sometimes when you're in front of financial institution or any other partner, it's normal, I think, as human being, to be a little bit shy about what are the harder portions that you're facing through right now, but express them, because again, I was reading an article over the weekend saying that 100% of the questions that are not being asked, the answer is no. Right. So I was speaking again last week with a client, and he was like, you know what, Vincent, I'll be honest with you, the impact on my bottom line is really what's important for me. And we're currently trying to reduce the cost of operations. And further along the conversation, how it went, realized that the US spend was perhaps an opportunity where we could reduce the operation cost. So again, if you don't open up, your partners won't be able to kind of support you. Saleh, what's your take on that?
So just Peter, if you can just recap the question for me one more time. I was following you, Vincent. I just want to make sure I understood the question.
So the question was, when times are good for a business, what sort of discussions, what questions, what sort of topics should business owners be having with lenders and other financial partners?
Yeah, again, all the activities you take today are not for today. You're preparing yourself for the future. So if growth is part of your plans, making sure you're ready for that growth. And so part of that is, the financial need. Part of that is making sure that you can address the advertising. Part of that is making sure you have employees in place. If you're a seasonal business, having that part-time staff in place for so just planning, and again, that ties very much into pivoting, and you prepare, and this is going to help all of us grow. And I think that's the best way, is to always be a step ahead of the game, and put things in place even if you don't need them. Even if you don't need a bank loan, make sure that you have access to a loan. Even if you don't need a big credit card, make sure you have a credit card. And going back to American Express, because they keep bringing this up, but their unsecured credit card, meaning that they're not going to show up against you if they pull your credit bureau. So having something like that in place, because it also helps you to get a loan at the same time. And so there's so many things, just having access to all these little tools. Like we had access to fraud protection tools, because once all the online transactions became more and more and more, like any other industry, the fraud transactions became more. We had fraud prevention tools from 3 years ago. What we did is we just added more and more tools, but we were ready for it, because we would see. So just kind of, you need to predict the future and have access to a lot of the things that you don't need today, but you think you need access to them in the future.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Listen, Vincent, just before, I'm going to give Saleh the final word, but I wanted to see if you had any final thoughts. We're going to have to sign off in a couple minutes here.
Yeah, no, again, a very interesting conversation. I guess the final thoughts is ask yourself the following questions. One, are you leaving this pandemic with the feeling that you're going to be so farther along than before it started, right? So if you don't, or if you're unsure about this, well, make sure that you speak with your partners and you have the conversation with the important players that are around you to make sure that you do, and kind of target the opportunities. And two, I guess, when was the last time that you had a really good heart-to-heart with your vendors and your key partners to make sure that you both kind of are on the same page, understand where you're both going? You might uncover a lot of very good opportunities based on those scenarios.
Saleh, when I think about American Express, and this is kudos to their marketing team over the years, right? I think of Don't Leave Home Without It, and I think of Membership Has Its Privileges. They're like brand slogans that are into my head. But besides kind of all of the very kind of financial and tactical type stuff that Amex has brought to you, you told me that you've had some good experiences with them, right? In terms of networking. Anyway, tell me about it.
Yeah, sure, Michael. So first of all, like any other major bank, they have dedicated reps in Ottawa on the ground. In Ottawa, we have Vincent as well as Bono Patel. They've always been there for us. They have their ratio of spending cash to gaining rewards is the highest in the industry, which then you can use those reward points towards paying off your transactions. And so from that perspective, giving you rewards, they're the highest out there. When it comes to networking, some of the best events, I was invited by them. I went to the Rogers Cup with Vincent the other year, which was extremely fun. BMW Canada was in the same booth. We spoke to them. I ended up buying a BMW too. A few clients came out of that event. So overall, and again, going into US, we have them as a partner. There's no change there, which was really good for us. In terms of, we really also like that unsecured piece where it's not tied to us. And one last thing was, traditional bank we have been working with years and years. These guys came in without even knowing us, and they approved us 3 or 4 times as much as a traditional bank, which this also helped a lot in our scaling. So there was a lot of benefits in working with them.
I can see that. And Vincent, as I said, we're going to wrap up here in a minute, but we're going to bring your contact details on screen. And if someone's watching or listening today, Vincent, how can they contact you?
Yes, no, obviously. So I'm you can easily find me on LinkedIn, also Bhavna Patel. But here's the contact information. If you have even just some questions about the industry as a whole, trends, I'm always extremely happy to help entrepreneurs out there and see them succeed. So don't be afraid of reaching out.
Yeah, I can tell you get a passion for entrepreneurs that comes naturally to you, Vincent. So good for you and what Amex is doing for all these good companies, including ones right here in Ottawa. So listen, guys, thank you so much, Vincent, for helping us put this on. Thank you so much, Saleh, for sharing the CanadaWheels story. It's an inspiring story, and I hope you have some big success. So we'll bid you guys adieu, and I'll sign off on behalf of Ottawa Business Journal. A reminder that you can visit obj.ca website every day for the latest in local business news. Also, I highly recommend that you subscribe to OBJ Today, which is a weekday email newsletter that many CEOs and entrepreneurs rely on to get that daily dose of local business information. A reminder, of course, you can follow us on social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram these days, and of course Facebook. And since many of you are joining us here today on YouTube, please hit that red subscribe button, and then better yet, click the bell button beside it, and you'll get notified when we're live on YouTube. That's all the time we have for today. Please continue watching OBJ for the latest in news and information, and of course, for these live broadcasts that we're doing almost on a weekly basis. That's all the time we have for today. On behalf of my colleague, Peter Kavesi, I'm Michael Curran signing off for the Ottawa Business Journal. Take care.